I found the most dangerous places in Raleigh to drive. I've compiled and analyzed the data, and I've created a list of the most dangerous intersections, road segments, and even the worst times to drive in the greater Raleigh area. Let's take a look. The data was all found on the North Carolina's Department of Transportation's website through various reports and crash maps. Starting off, let's take a look at the most dangerous intersections from 2018 through the end of 2022 when considering total number of crashes. The top 10 are shown here on the screen, and what you'll notice first is that most of them involve I-440. The top 3 worst intersections were no surprise, involving I-440 at Capitol Boulevard, I-440 at Wake Forest Road, and I-40 at South Saunders. If you ask any Raleigh native, these would be the roadways that you would be advised to avoid if you can. Now, if you look at the injuries instead of crashes, the intersections with the most injuries also closely follow this list, led by I-440 and New Bern Avenue, I-440 and Wake Forest, and I-440 and Capitol Boulevard. So what does this tell us? Be careful when getting on and off I-440. These roadways and intersections were designed and built in the early mid-80s, and they were never thought to have anywhere close to the traffic volume that we see here today. These intersections in particular have a lot going on, with multiple turn lanes that can create confusion, cars that merge on and off the roadways, sometimes with traffic lights and other times with just a yield sign. So you really need to be paying close attention to what's going on around you. Next, let's take a look at the worst roads in general, and this data stretches from 2015 through the present day. You'll see the top 10 here shown on the screen. And again, no real surprises to any Raleigh native. The top 3 are I-440, Capitol Boulevard, and stretches of I-40 in Wake County. Now, these are some of the most highly traveled, congested roads in Raleigh, so it makes sense that they proportionally would see a high number of total accidents. So we kept digging to find the most dangerous roadway segments. So we focused on the segments that had the most fatalities and serious injuries over the last 4 years. Some new information emerges here. While we still see the familiar I-440, I-40, and Capitol Boulevard, some newer roadways appear at the top of the list with Pool Road, New Bern Avenue, and Highway 401. You'll notice again that most of these segments are either on I-440 and I-40, or are segments of crossing roads directly adjacent to these two highways. It's also of note that there are multiple sections close by or next to each other on both Capitol Boulevard and New Bern Avenue, which make them some of the most dangerous stretches in the area. But overall, even though we have some new roadways showing up, we still could be skewed by volume as these are still highly traveled roads. So let's take a look at the road segments that have the highest crash rates, which puts the highly traveled roads on the same playing field as the lesser traveled roads. And it represents how likely you are to get in an accident on a particular roadway at any given time. You'll see on the map that the road segments shown are some of the same that we've seen, like Capitol Boulevard, I-440, and New Bern Avenue. But there's actually some new segments to be cautious of. Downtown Raleigh roads of Blount, Person, Edenton, and Dawson are one of the first areas to grab your attention as having high crash rates given these roadways stick out in the middle of downtown. And the infamous Wade Avenue finally makes an appearance on the list, where it intersects I-440, where there's a lot happening with those merging on and off those two roads. There's some other dangerous segments south of town along Highway 401 and Tryon roads, as well as Jones Franklin at Western Boulevard. There's a section on Glenwood Avenue right outside of Crabtree Valley Mall that showed up in our most dangerous intersections data. And there's even a spot in North Raleigh along Creedmoor Road where it intersects I-540. So if you can have one takeaway from this data, it's to be careful around I-440, whether you're driving on I-440 itself or a roadway that intersects it. Okay, moving on to some other interesting data regarding worst times to drive, teen crashes, elderly crashes, and alcohol-related incidents. The absolute worst time to drive in the triangle based on number of accidents is, as you would expect, 5 p.m. But it actually starts getting pretty bad starting around 3 p.m. and is even bad until around 7 p.m. The worst day of the week to drive is Fridays, and while Friday at 5 p.m. is just a bit worse than Wednesdays and Thursdays, Friday at 4 p.m. is actually the worst overall time to drive in the triangle, and Friday at 3 p.m. is up there as well. So when you're getting off early on Fridays, don't let your guard down, as you're entering the most dangerous time to drive in the triangle. I also thought it was interesting how low the numbers were for the morning commutes in comparison to the afternoon commutes in Raleigh, as afternoons have nearly 4 times as many crashes as the morning commutes. If you have a teenager, listen up, as the most severe injuries and fatalities over the past few years have occurred along Capitol Boulevard, Highway 401 North and South, and the Briar Creek area, and oddly enough, up and down Raleigh Boulevard. Overall, the suburbs seem to rarely involve serious injuries with teens, but don't let your guard down. Data for elderly drivers involving serious injuries or fatalities is a little bit more spread out, but you do see a more pronounced grouping between I-440 and I-540, as that is an area with a higher concentration of elderly residents. For alcohol-related crashes, the trend for serious injuries and fatalities is also fairly consistent with what you'd expect, as areas near downtown and along Capitol Boulevard have the most crashes, and the most common time frame of those crashes are between midnight and 4 a.m. But take note of the high number of crashes along I-440 and I-540, which do involve some wrong-way collisions. Also, the suburbs again seem to have very few alcohol-related major accidents. So the bottom line, avoid driving late at night, especially as you get closer to downtown. And as mentioned before, be especially careful when driving on or around I-440, I-40, and Capitol Boulevard at any day, anytime. Being a Raleigh native, I am not surprised by what the stats are showing, but I did expect Wade Avenue and Wake Forest roads to be higher on the rankings. I hope you found this video helpful, and let us know what you thought the most surprising finding was in the comments below. If you need any real estate assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out, as our team would love to help you. I'm Allison Warnerowski, and thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.